Excellent. So growing in Asia, how do you do that? Well, by eating a lot and growing in years. The first thing I want to say is you guys are the heroes, my heroes, okay? There's like 20 people here. We're on day 2, well, 30 maybe. Day 2 of a really, really, really hard-working conference. We spend all night preparing the second day. And we went to bed about 5, 6 a.m. And it's amazing to see people like Veran, Samir, even myself here, still alive and still going strong. So as you can see, my voice is not the best. I got a little bit of the Romanian cold and maybe a little bit of drink. And that's put me a little bit under the water. That's probably one of the lessons that we need to take away. If you're speaking on the second day of a conference, don't. So we're going to be talking today about growing in Asia. Why am I qualified to speak about this? Well, I've been working in the games industry for, I guess, 17 years now. I spent a bunch of those years as Vice President, International Development Services in Electronic Arts. As part of those responsibilities, I was in charge of the things that had to do with culturalization, localization, QA. So I run a portfolio of services there for all of our developers in EA, both the external and the internal, and I spent pretty much 15 years doing that. Also, after I left EA, I joined a company called Keywords. They deliver development services, so art, engineering, localization, QA, customer experience. And we're pretty much the biggest company in the world that does this. We do it for pretty much everybody that is anybody in the industry. So Ubisoft, Take-Two, EA, I mean, you name it, they are our clients. CD Projekt, Matt is one of our clients. Supercell, Riot, everybody. So that is also very relevant there because one of our offerings is localization and culturalization through the art studios that we have in Asia. And I have also learned a lot about Asia while in Keywords. So I think we can move on to the next slide. Oh, do I have a clicker? Yes. And it works. Okay, so we all know this, right? If you're a developer, especially if you're indies, the biggest challenge is the user acquisition, and once you acquire the user, you have other challenges like retaining them and monetizing them. But if you have infinite money, it's not a problem. I mean, you can just pay for your users, right? And let me give you some examples of how easy it is if you have a lot of money. So you can do what EA does and use the power of the force. I mean, this is an IP that is going to bring you, just by the fact that it exists, millions and millions and millions of users. Or you can use the power of football. You know, that's another one. You've got 3 billion, I think, football aficionados in the world. It crosses pretty much every frontier, every barrier. And, you know, again, you don't need to crank complex solutions to a simple problem. In this case, is having a worldwide IP that costs an arm and a leg. But we're indies. We don't have either the Star Wars or the football franchises. So, I mean, you can get creative and use both, right? And use the power of the force in your football pitch. So we'll have to look at different solutions for us. So if you don't have infinite money, you have to use other things like game mechanics, like creativity, like innovation, and actually like knowing your player on those places where you're going to launch your game. And let me tell you something. Asia is big today. In the future, the whole of the Western world is just going to be a subset of what Asia can do in terms of revenue, money, and everything. So 10 things you need to know to conquer Asia with your mobile game. And this is very much dedicated to mobile here. Some of these lessons are also applied to high-definition media like PC or consoles, but most of this is for mobile platforms. So yeah, there is like 30 things, but we only have time for, not even for 10. Actually, Catalin told me he would kill me if I go over, so we'll go as fast as possible. So the first thing to know about Asia, apart from the fact that it is where it is that there is a lot of people in Asia. A lot of people, a lot more people than anywhere else in the world. So these are the different populations, and I'm going to be focusing here on that part of Asia that you see there, southeast. The whole of Siberia, Mongolia, and all that, you know, also has people, but they are not very much into games because they are very busy trying to keep the cold away. So the opportunity is absolutely mind-blowing. If you look at that little text over there, where it says the almost 600 million mobile internet connections that they have in China represent 90% of the internet access that that country does. You will see that not only there's a lot of these guys, most of them have smartphones and use them heavily. And most of the interaction that they have with the internet, with the external world, actually comes from their mobile phone. So the opportunity is huge, but the entry barriers are pretty high. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. So they really like to play games. I mean, it says there digital games market is not true. It's actually mobile games market. Whole market is more like 100 billion, or was 100 billion last year. I don't know what it is this year. Slightly more than half is the mobile market. And look at the Asia number, 19.6, which is mind-blowing considering that that number was practically nothing 7 years ago. Okay. So the opportunity is huge today, and that's there in Spanish. Probably because I was drunk when I was trying to translate this into English. So Southeast Asia is the next frontier. If you look at Asia, everybody talks about what we call in the industry, China, Korea, and Japan. But those are huge markets. They're also fairly established markets that have decent growth in double figures, but they are not anything like Southeast Asia. Also in Japan, China, and Korea, you have a lot of competition. People that have been doing this thing for a long time know how to do it very well. They know their players extremely well, and it's very difficult to crack those markets. In my time in EA, I spent 16 years there. We tried to crack these markets again and again, and we only partially succeeded, mostly thanks to the power of FIFA and FIFA Online in Korea. So look at the combined average growth of these markets here. 41%, 33%, 31%, 34%. It's almost impossible to lose in these markets. There's not a lot of games. There's a lot of interest. They don't monetize incredibly well, but they monetize enough. And if you don't get in today, when these markets turn into the next China, which will be in 3 or 4 years if you do the math, you will not know how to enter that market. You will be facing the same situation that, historically in 1995 Western developers faced in Japan, and that today we are facing in China and Korea. So less competition, lower entry barriers, faster growth. Very good opportunity for indies here. So again, these are what I consider to be emerging markets. So I chose in Latin America, Eastern Europe, and Southeast Asia. The populations are not that widely different, In Eastern Europe, they are by the definition that I chose, which is really Central and Eastern Europe. You have 350 million, and you have around 600 million in each of the other two. And you can see the combined average growth there, 28.8%, is quite mind-blowing. As I said, the monetization is not great. Look at the market size, it's 1 billion, which is nothing to sneer at. If you're an indie, you have a great opportunity here. Quality of the games is not incredible, and people want to have games. So the time is now. What do you need to do if you have a mobile game? Well, you will have your mobile game, you'll have your social integration, you will have your payment platforms, you will have all that stuff. But you have to remember that in Asia, your social platforms are not the same than the ones that we use over here. So in my phone, I have Facebook, and that's pretty much it. That's basically my social network, apart from LinkedIn. In Asia, as you can see over there, Facebook does not even make the first 5. It's growing very fast, and there is a tendency to reduce this. So 10 years from now, this will look very different. There will probably be only 3 players there. I'm absolutely convinced that Tencent will be dominating the market in China 10 years from now, but I believe that Facebook will be second, but that is not the reality today. And if you go farther out in Asia, you go to Indonesia, you go to other more obscure places that still have hundreds of millions of population, then you need to understand that your players want to be social on the places where they are social every day. Another very interesting fact about the Asian players in general, Southeast Asia players specifically, is they absolutely love the social aspects of the game. We'll cover that in a point not far from now. So these guys in Asia, they like all genres. Actually, as you can see, that's not true. They only like 4 things. They like collectible card games, they like RPGs, they like turn-based strategy, or casual puzzle. So some of these is very, very similar to what we do over here. Some of these are our favorite games. Casual puzzle is there practically because of King. King is actually quite huge in Asia with Candy Crush. But in general, all the rest of the games fall into one of these 3 categories. So if you want to launch your game in Asia, especially in Southeast Asia, think about what is it that your game does. Because you will find that some games are really, really good candidates to go and be launched in Asia, and some games just aren't. Next, 7th. Well, this is no surprise to anybody. Android is the dominant platform, the same way that it is the dominant platform worldwide. But in Asia, it's even more clear. There's still a lot of Android deployment that are really, really old, especially in places like Indonesia. So you will have to support a lot of the operating system versions. So if you're going to launch in Asia, you have to have an Android-based version of your game, or you will not get anywhere. You can launch iOS, and it monetizes really well, like it does in the West. But the amount of players that you're going to capture is minimal. The joy of supporting all Android versions. Yes. OK. So app stores. So right, this is just China, just to give you an idea of what we're talking about here. China has 300 plus specialist app stores in Android. If you can imagine the complexity that requires in terms of your publishing effort, but also from the point of view of development, you have to be able to connect to all these app stores and comply with their rules and regulations. And a lot of them are very, very easy to comply. You can do like 50 of them with just a little tweak on your game. But you have to take into account that only like 18% of all the sales on Android in China are coming through the official Android store, and all the rest are coming from all these little guys here. Those are feature phones. Yes, I put the wrong picture there, and I just realized now. But there is a huge, huge, huge diversification in terms of the amount of operating systems and amount of handsets that these guys use. So it's almost impossible if you don't have some sort of test automation in your game. It's almost impossible to be able to qualify for all of this. And remember that a lot of these millions of people, they have very, very, very basic versions of a phone because they do not have a lot of money. So that has some consequences that I will talk about a little bit later. Number 9, credit card penetration. And OK, I'm tricking you a little bit here. I'm just putting the ones that are horrendously low. But look at the credit card penetration in Vietnam. This is data from 2015, so it will have changed by now. But you know, Filipinas, 3%, Thailand, 16%, Indonesia, 1%. And I'm realizing now that these are the Spanish names of these countries. But you know, again, forgive me because I was trying to put this together yesterday night. It was pretty difficult. What does this mean for you as a developer? It means that you have to implement local payment platforms, local payment solutions. And this is not easy to do because it varies from country to country. In many, many of these countries, there is still, the business models are very, very similar to what we had in Jamdad in 2008, where the carrier was king and pretty much all the payments were going through the carriers. In other countries, you have prepaid cards that are sold on the kiosks, on the streets, and basically your bandwidth and the amount of calls and bandwidth, really, that you have limits your capability to do pretty much anything. So you do have to give your players the opportunity to pay. If you don't have a payment platform that is supported in their country, they will not be able to pay. And I have non-developers, this is real story, saying, OK, we're getting no revenue whatsoever from Indonesia, and not realizing that if they wanted, the players could not pay them. 10, yeah, this is a funny one. So I gave a version of this conference about 4 months ago in a different place, and you know, I finished my top 10 things, and somebody in the audience said, "You haven't mentioned localization." I just plain forgot. which is amazing. This is the single most important thing that you can do for your game when you launch in Asia. To give you some figures that are real-life figures, and I encourage you guys to go to App Annie if you have an account there. Ski Safari, which is a very simple, go down game on skis where you're just jumping from time to time and capturing fruits and stuff like that. When it launched in China, it launched in English, and then they decided about a year later to localize it. The moment that they localized it, their revenue went up 34 times. Yes, 3,400% growth. So they thought, okay, this is working. This is quite nice. Okay. What if we went one step farther and we actually culturalize this? Because in China, there's not a lot of people that ski. So instead of being a skier going downhill, it was suddenly a monkey jumping downhill. And instead of having snow, it had temples. It had, local stuff that people could recognize. The revenue went up 250 times. And I don't want to even pretend to know what percentage that is, 25,000% or something like that. So it doesn't work for everybody. If your game to begin with is not a lot of fun, all the localization or culturalization in the world is not going to make a difference. But if you have a good game, you absolutely have to do this. And you almost have to do it from day one. You can soft launch first to see whether the players actually like the concept. But the moment that you get the level of engagement that you want, even if you have a micro amount of acquisitions there, you need to localize to see what the real picture looks like. And it's not that expensive. So I have many other things. So we talk about locally relevant content already. The game mechanics are very, very different. Any of you that have played a puzzle game in Asia will have noticed that there is a meta game around the puzzle game that is usually has some sort of RPG element on it or trading cards element, like think about Puzzles and Dragons, think about Tower of Saviors. Those kind of games are very, very different to what we find in the Western world. Women are very, very important in Asia. They actually tend to spend, in some of these countries, not all of them, more money than the men do on their software on their phones. So they're more likely to spend. If they find a game that they like, they actually monetize very well. They monetize more better than males. So when you're developing, think about women there and try to build games that they will like. Also, women in Asia tend to play just 1 or 2 games. So you have only 1 or 2 opportunities and no more than that. It's not like men who usually have 20 games in their phone and are playing them more or less indiscriminately. Many countries in Southeast Asia actually prefer cooperative play to competitive play. This is less true of a place like Taiwan, for instance, where they're fine with competition. But for instance, if you go to Thailand, the Thailand player actually doesn't like the competition part of it. It needs to be their competition where everybody wins and they can celebrate together, or it needs to be some sort of cooperative play. The other thing is the Thai player will directly not consider a game that doesn't have those kind of capabilities, PvP or even team versus team, or even cooperation between groups of people. They want to play with their friends, they want to be socially connected to their friends, and they want it in a very strong way. Small is beautiful. I put there 8 meg APK on Android. The real number, because I've upped that number artificially, but 80% of the downloads in China in 2015 were of APKs that were less than 38 meg. Okay, so 38 meg is really difficult, especially if you have a AAA game with very, very good definition graphics and all that. So shooting for less than 80 should work. If you're higher than that, forget about it. The bandwidth that these guys have is very, very small and very, very, very expensive. So try to get your game to be as efficient as you possibly can. Very good example here, PopCap managed to do this. Their APK was like 46 meg, coming from something like 450 meg, which is where they started. Quite amazing. Okay, though some of the countries in Southeast Asia, or regions, or territories, I guess, Hong Kong, Macau, Taiwan, and Singapore, very different to the rest. They are very, very Western. They love competitive games. You can even launch in English there and actually have a very good opportunity for monetization. The other thing that separates these countries from the rest of Asia is that they monetize quite well. So they will monetize to the level of 1%, 2%, which is our usual average on the Western world, while in some of the other countries in Asia, like China, like Indonesia, only like 0.5% monetize. We have to remember the population is much bigger, so the amount of downloads that you get is very different. But you have to remember that. Japan is a completely different story. The monetization on a successful game in mobile is completely different to Western world or to the rest of Asia. They monetize incredibly well, very, very well. It's very likely that you will find games where even like 50% or 60% of the people are playing their game are actually monetizing, okay? So study each of them and understand what your monetization strategy is for each of these games, and try to adapt to what the player wants over there. What else do we have here? I don't know, yes, Japan. I tried to give you an inkling of what Japan looks like. It's a almost parallel universe where quality is king. You have this lightest small bug in your game, and you're basically out. You don't get a second chance. You will appear. There was actually a front page news in one of the daily newspapers like 6, 7 years ago, and this is going back to console, because Nintendo actually had a pretty big bug in one of the games, and that was front page news. So quality needs to be very, very, very high, and content needs to be very, very compelling, because the guys in Japan, when they play a mobile game, they actually expect to monetize. They believe that they're going to be spending money on this game, even if it's a free-to-play game. And there's a lot more, and we can save that for the question and answer. As I said, I will be punished by death from Catalan if I don't wrap this up quickly. Last piece of advice, and this is a very important one, and it's what we try to do in EA. You can try to do it on your own, and EA actually tried and failed many, many, many times. Or you can go, and if you're an indie here, you can contact a local indie over there. There's a lot of common language. Both of you will be passionate about games. Both of you will be facing more or less the same challenges that you're facing, maybe in a bigger or a smaller way. And there is a lot of possibilities of actually asking them to help you with your game over there while you help them with their game over here. I've seen this happen successfully at least twice that I know of. The other option is to go to a publisher. The publishers in Southeast Asia are complex propositions. They do not speak the same language that you speak. And I'm not talking about the fact that they speak in Chinese and you guys speak in Romanian or in English. They look at the business model in a completely different way. They are not there for the long run. So I am generalizing here, but given the choice between going to a publisher over there, I would look for an indie that is successful and has successfully self-published a couple of games. They can teach you a lot. It will be easier to work with them, and it will actually be a lot cheaper if you're an indie. What else do we have here? Oh, well, just some nice stuff that I found in the internet. This is an example of how Plants vs. Zombies culturalize their content. Their Great Wall edition has different zombies, and they, of course, are relevant to their own culture, as you can see over here. And this is a good example of an indie guy that after listening to my talk and talking to me for a couple of hours, changed his game quite dramatically from that to this. About how successful he was, I still don't know, because he still hasn't managed to go to soft launch with it. But the graphic is really nice. So that's pretty much it. Well, I should say that there is a lot more than this that doesn't fit in the presentation, but that is all we have time for. So as opposed to what Kathleen did, we will take a little bit of time for question and answer. I believe we do have 5 minutes. Fernando, I'm not going to ask you. You'll go second, I promise. Over there. No, the green guy. No, not that guy over there.
Hello. Thank
Hey.
you for the presentation. Really interesting. My question is about Clash Royale, and if you followed how they launched on Asia market and how did they handle that?
What was your question? How did you?
If you follow Clash Royale, and how did they manage to
Oh, Clash Royale.
tackle the Asian market?
I actually didn't, because when I was doing all the research for this, it was just pre-launch of Clash Royale. I mean, I do know how Supercell does things in Asia, and they do it with, go back to slide 1, infinite money. Okay? Having said that, they have a phenomenal game there. You know, it's actually better than Clash of Clans, my personal opinion. So they have an easy job there, but Supercell has a strategy and always had a strategy of buying installs, and they did that in Asia. They have done incredibly well in Asia, but I haven't gone to Apani and basically started taking all the data and just put it on a table, which is basically what I did for this presentation. So I'm only able to partially answer your question, unfortunately. Apologies for that. But if you give me your card after, as I continue to study this, I'll give you an answer in writing, okay? Cool. So Fernando did have a question. Oh, it's a one serious one. Okay, excellent. I have a row of hecklers here.
Yeah. So the serious question is, how long do you think this is going to take actually in Asia to migrate from carrier billing to traditional, based on the credit card penetration and everything else?
It's going to happen incredibly fast. I mean, in fact, it's happening incredibly fast. I look at the credit card penetration just before, like, Sunday, just to get an idea of how it was evolving in those countries that I showed you. I actually got the data. I didn't put it in the presentation because this data that I showed you is much more spectacular. But in Philippines, they're like, I don't know, up to 6%, which is mind-blowing considering that they were like 1% a year ago. What will not evolve is their cultural preferences. I mean, that will evolve, but it will not necessarily converge with what we have here. In terms of the social media and their own particularities, I think it's a 10 years game there. We will find ourselves in a situation 10 years from now where we have 3 big players in China, but that is not the situation today, and it's not the situation in most of those countries. Okay. I'm not sure if this answers your question.
Yeah, it gives an idea.
And you had a non-serious question?
What is Game Lab on Dividel?
Oh, fuck. Thank you. Yeah, I love you. Thank you very much, Fernando.
I wanted to tell you that there are many disturbing things about the slide that you're showing right now, including your Gmail address, the year, the conference.
Yeah, that's me, actually.
But the email reminded me that you do work at Keywords.
Yes.
And my question is, does Keyword help developers culturalize their titles? Tell us a little bit about that.
Okay, I didn't want to talk about that because it looks like selling, but the fact that we have art studios and the biggest localization machine in the world allows us to actually culturalize the games. And our art studios half of them are based in Asia proper, and the other half are West Coast North America, which is very, very connected to Asia. So Liquid Development, Mindwalk in Beijing, Lakshay in India. By the way, I have not mentioned India, because although it's technically part of Asia, I mean, it's physically there, it works in a completely different way, and the way that the games are evolving in India is completely different to the rest of Asia, and a different speed too.
It is the pricing actually for localization for Asia, right? Is it affordable for indie developers, or?
It's a what?
Price-wise, it is affordable for indie developers to hire keywords, or you need to be in a certain level of revenue to be able to hire keyword services to be able to localize in Asia?
That is actually a really good question. If you're an indie, you're better off talking to another indie in the region. Keywords is not particularly expensive, but it is very geared to AAA. I mean, you heard the list of clients that we have. That doesn't mean that we don't work with indies. For instance, we are the sole provider for Oculus on our localization. That basically means that we work with the development community, and that development community is full of indies. But you are better off with a different relationship. It just takes a little bit of work. I've had a couple of startups do this very, very, very successfully. Mihai,
Hey.
okay.
I have one question. I know this presentation was focused on the mobile side, but I was wondering why do we have this difference between PC console and mobile? It seems that on the PC console side, the games that we play in Europe and North America are exactly the same games that are really successful also in Asia.
The difference exists, and it's a lot. Like, I'm not going to go about Japan because you know Japan very well, so you know that they're not playing the same games that we are playing. Some of them are the same, but, you know, most of them are not, okay? So FIFA over there sells, I don't know, 500,000 units, which is great. It's a great sale, but it's not, you know, it's not Monster Hunter with 5 million units on week 1, okay? So leaving Japan apart, some of these territories are very Westernized. As I said, Macau, Taiwan, Hong Kong, those places, those are micro territories that monetize very well, so you should not give up on them. The rest of the territories, they're not playing the same games that we're playing here. I mean, Tower of Saviors was a phenomenon in China last year, and I don't know how many people here have played it, but you know, it's not pervasive in the Western world. What's more, let me give you an example. EA still has, I think, a IP and intellectual property monopoly from Hasbro, right? So we had like 3 mobile games about Monopoly, one of them even 3D, very well done and whatever. I think I actually have the data. I don't have it in this presentation, but over 1 year, they managed to get between, you know, the 4 key countries in Southeast Asia, something like 400,000 revenue, which is nothing, basically. They were localized, they were not culturalized, it was just monopoly, okay? So a Thai developer built something called Get Rich, exclamation mark, and they got rich. I mean, it's exactly monopoly. I mean, literally, excuse my French, fucking monopoly. It's monopoly. Even the game mechanics, even the 3D implementation, everything is monopoly. It's just Thai, okay? Or locally relevant things. So the locally relevant streets, the pieces that you move are very, very, very. One of them is very manga-like. Another one is a dragon or something like that. Those guys, when I did this study in 4 months, they did 15 million revenue on the same countries compared to the 3 games that EA had launched there. So if you're interested, I can share that case study with you. It's very, very, very interesting. So no, some of the games are portable, and that's where you need to culturalize. Some of the games are just not portable. Okay, I believe, any other questions? No? We have done extremely well. Thank you very much for your attention. I hope you learned something.